You're listening to the 49 Carats Podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats Podcast. I'm your host, Steph, and we are 3 days away from the NFL draft. Everyone get excited. And I'm really excited, actually, because today we are going to be talking about wide receivers, running backs, and tight ends that the 49ers could possibly target in this draft. And I'm doing it today with Josh Taylor. He is the host of Draft Takeover, host of Washington Commanders podcast, Take Command Show. And he was at the Senior Bowl, so I know he has some good insights for us on some of these prospects. Josh, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. You know, I actually love the 49er fan base and then the content creators y'all have. I'm probably Javi's biggest fan. Staying with LaPonte.
Javi's groupie.
Yeah. Love Javi. Finally met him at the Senior Bowl. I've known him for like 3 years almost. I met him being a guest on his podcast when Washington and San Francisco played each other in the Mud Bowl a couple years back. So it was just a good time. And of course, LaPonte. Y'all have a good group. Like, I'm jealous. Like, you know, we have some good people over here for Washington, but the 49ers, y'all kill it all the time. I mean, I love watching y'all stuff all the time. Like, even though it has nothing to do with my team, I'm always plugged in with y'all. So I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. Actually, it's funny you mentioned Jason. I just had a DB's draft preview with him that came out this morning. So after you guys watch this, make sure you go ahead and check that one out. But before we talk about some skill position players that the 49ers can target in this draft, I feel like it's important that we look at the current state of the 49ers in terms of their wide receivers, running backs, tight ends, and all that. So wide receivers, we got Debo Samuel at the top of the list. You know, there's a lot of talk around him at the moment, but we're going to keep it pushing. Debo, we got Brandon Ayuk, Jawan Jennings, Malik Turner, and Raven McLeod, Marcus Johnson, some new names there, Keyshawn Johnson, Austin Mack, Connor Weddington. A lot of those last few, probably some bubble guys, practice squad players. So the 49ers are definitely going to want to get a little bit more depth there, I would think. And then on the running back side, we have Elijah Mitchell, Jeff Wilson Jr., Jermichael Hasty, and Trey Sermon. Again, I mean, Elijah Mitchell, he had a big year last year, but I feel like it's lacking some firepower. I mean, we're missing Raheem Mostert, who went to the Dolphins, and so
love that.
I think they're gonna need to find someone else. I think in the running back room. Tight ends, we have George Kittle, Ross Dwelley, Charlie Warner, Tanner Hudson, Jordan Matthews. Again, there's a huge drop-off after Kittle. So I think finding a tight end 2 is going to be critical for the 49ers, and we'll talk a little bit about that and who they can target there. But let's go right into some of the wide receivers and some of the talk around there. First, we have to talk about Debo Samuel. Of course, there was some talk around him that the Jets would be willing to throw in the 10th overall pick. That's a huge deal considering the fact that that's worth way more than what Tyreek Hill and Adams went for in their respective trades. And so when that news came out, it was kind of like, okay, the 49ers definitely have to consider that, right? Yeah. I mean, there was talk about King's ransom that the 49ers wanted for Debo, and this kind of sounded like it would be it for them. And then I've been hearing some things today that's like, no, they actually would want 2 firsts.
Yeah,
at
2
least.
firsts. I saw that. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, so, and then John Lynch spoke today, and everything that John Lynch said seems to point in the direction of they are not going to be trading him, but anything can happen. We know that. So I feel like we got to do some due diligence ourselves and talk about some of these top names that just in case the 49ers get pick 10 or some other pick in the middle of the first round, who could they target? So if you ask anyone who their like top 5 wide receiver rankings are, you're going to get different answers from everyone, as illustrated here by, 4 different pages that have 4 different rankings.
Looks
And
about right.
so I'm very curious to know, what are your thoughts? Who do you have as your top 5?
So this has been the hardest rankings of all the draft, honestly, is the wide receivers, and I've moved it around like 3 times just this last week alone. But for me, I feel like Garrett Wilson's been the consensus number 1 for me, because I feel like he's the most well-balanced, complete wide receiver, but he's also the safest pick to be a guy that can come in and, you know, just contribute right away and be like that superstar wide receiver. That if you're going to draft him in like the top, people are saying 4 to the Jets. Like if he's going to be a top 5 pick, you have to get someone who can come in and be worthy of that pick. So for me, Garrett Wilson has always been that guy. I feel like Jameson Williams, obviously love him as an Alabama fan. If he didn't tear his ACL, I think he would be the clear wide receiver 1. But even so, with that, I'm not too concerned with his ACL. I think his rehab and health and everything's going phenomenal, but he has that explosiveness that just translates so well. You know, people are concerned about his size, and rightfully so. You know, low body mass index. I think he's like really low percentile in rankings for that, but everything else just tests really well. So I've had Jameson as number 2, and his name's been heating up a lot the last week. Yeah, you see some of these scores here, and people will say like, oh, I thought Traylon Burks was going to run faster than he did. Like 4.55 still for a guy that size is fast. Like, and it shows up on tape. And for me, one thing I've learned this offseason is that people mistake combine speed and play speed so much. I think people are putting a lot of tape and, you know, stuff like that. Just they're getting away from it and just leaning onto the data too much. Like Kyle Hamilton, obviously, like people like if you see his 40-yard dash, he's running like an alligator. Like he's not running a smooth 40, but then you pop on the tape and you see him going sideline to sideline. So I love the relative athletic score. I use this so much. It tells you one side of the tape, but also just trust your eyes and what you're watching for these wide receivers.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have Wilson and then Jameson Williams, and then
I have
who you
Drake
got after that?
Drake is 3 for me.
Drake. Okay, yeah.
I love big size guy. He runs like a giraffe, but he's silky how he does it. He's so smart. I would love for Washington to get him at 11. I would love us to get any of these top 4 guys at 11. I have Chris Olave at 4 and then Traylon Burks at 5 for me. But I think Traylon Burks to San Francisco excites me a lot. And I'm sure we'll talk about with Debo, but just his game and how he plays and how he looked at Arkansas compared to what I saw in Debo when he was at South Carolina, like they are so similar in a lot of ways. So I don't know if he would be worthy of a top 10 pick. Like that's a lot you're asking for once again. If it's a number 10 pick, Traylon Burks, I don't know. But if he pans out and plays like Debo, then obviously it'd be worth it. You know, that's something I say all the time. There's no such thing as overdrafting if the guy hits as what you want. Like, what's the difference in 12 and 18? Nothing. Yeah. If they turn out to be what you were hoping for and they take that qualitative leap, then that number means absolutely nothing to me. So, I mean, Traylon Burks at 10 would be a maybe part of a reach because I think you could get him back in like the late 20s. Maybe if they traded with the Chiefs, I think that's someone else who would obviously really want Debo. You know, if he wants 2 firsts, 29 and 30 could be a possibility for Debo. I don't know if that's something you've been hearing as well for the Chiefs.
Whew, yeah. We'll see what happens. I'm glad you mentioned Traylon Burks as a good fit for the 49ers, though, because I was going to ask you. It's not just about who's the top guy, but who would be the top guy for them and who fits their scheme and what they're looking for. So sounds like Traylon Burks might be the best guy in that option. But, what was interesting, so I'm going to, this next screen here, these are a list of wide receivers that the 49ers have met with. These are confirmed visits, a lot of official top 30 visits. And if you notice, if you look at some of these names, a lot of them are later round guys, probably with the exception of Christian Watson, who's maybe fringe first round, second round kind of guy. And to me, this tells me that they're probably looking to draft a wide receiver later in the draft, I would think. But a lot of this Debo stuff, we can speculate on when the 49ers found out about the trade request, but a lot of it feels like it might have been sprung up on them, right?
Yeah.
And some of these visits reflect that because I feel like maybe they would have looked into a lot of the top guys had they known a little bit sooner. One thing that I thought was interesting is that the 49ers did actually attend Drake London's pro day. And that makes sense because his pro day was one of the
like a week ago.
yeah, his pro days were one of the latest ones.
Yeah.
And actually 4 or 5 days after this, we found out about Debo Samuel's trade request. So it all kind of made sense. And so I thought it was interesting. So maybe Drake London is another guy they would consider.
At 10, I would say absolutely. Because,
yeah.
I mean, you see him go in motion at USC. You say, I mean, he played a lot of the slot for a while when Amon-Ra St. Brown was there. And then he went back to playing outside. So he can play in a lot of places, get the ball in his hands quick, and he'll break tackles. You know, he'll play physical. So I could see him fitting. Like, you could justify getting him at 10 if you do lose Debo and you get that 10th overall pick. Because people are saying 10 to the Jets is exactly where they think Drake London will go. And if not, he's not making it past Washington at 11. Like that's been the biggest smoke of this, like last week or two, is 10 or 11 for Drake London. He's not getting past 11.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Another scenario I can see is hypothetically, if they did get the 10th overall pick, I would assume that they would also maybe get 35 or 38 from the Jets as well. And in that case, they don't necessarily need to use a 10th overall pick for a wide receiver. They can always go edge. They could always go safety or another position. And so in that case, let's just say if they didn't go wide receiver with that first pick and maybe that early second pick, who are some names that they can possibly target in the second or third rounds? So I've kind of put together this list of some names that kind of excite me. And so I'm a little curious to know what you think about some of these guys.
So Skye Moore is the name that's just shot up draft boards the last, few weeks, if not the whole month. Just that quick guy. I mean, people are saying he belongs in Kansas City because of his, release package and how fast he is after the catch and everything. Like he could replace like a Tyreek Hill type player. So Skye Moore is like the popular, flashy, like hit pick right now. Like people saying he's going in the first round. I don't think he goes that high. I think that's a little too high. I think Christian Watson could possibly sneak in just because of his size and his speed. Like the balance he plays with, being physical, but still having that speed and knowing how to use it. He's not just like aggressive all the time. He's a great route runner. Obviously, pairing him with Trey Lance, North Dakota State guy, would be a great idea for the 49ers. I know Javi loves Christian Watson, and rightfully so. I mean, he's just like one of those special packages at wide receiver. Jahan Dotson, I think he goes in the first round. I don't think he makes it out. I think he could even go to like the Lions right at the end of the round. Maybe I don't know. Maybe the Jets could get him. I like his package with how he plays. I like his pluck ability is what I call it. Being able to go up and get the ball out of the air. He makes some crazy catches at Penn State. Like I watched Penn State because I'm looking at like Jaquan Brisker, some of these defensive guys I want for Washington, but I'm like, let me watch the offense a little bit because I just love how Jahan Dotson plays. So, and same with Calvin Austin, kind of like Skye Moore, just a quick guy. The Memphis, I mean, like we did with Antonio Gibson, he played some backfield, he played outside, he played some slot. Like they just used Calvin Austin as like this offensive weapon. And Khalil Shakir, I know Javi talked to him on his podcast. I've talked to Khalil a little bit, watched his tapes. It seems like every time I watch Boise State, he made like a phenomenal, crazy catch somehow, like contorting his body, somehow being able to track deep balls. He's not the best, like in his cuts, his release package. Like he's not the fastest guy by any means, but he just wins these contested catches so well. And the thing that I like about this wide receiver class in general is you can really say, like, what do we want in our wide receivers? Like, what does our scheme look like? And I feel like that's important for the 49ers. I think that's something they do very well, is knowing how they're going to play and really looking for these guys that can thrive and not just drafting the best wide receiver available. I'm like, how can we use this guy? Like, what does this look like? Let's force him to do something he might not be comfortable doing. Like, find what you want. And this draft has it for you. Like if it's a quick guy in the slot that can get that separation because you have a young quarterback who wants to get the ball out of his hands fast, cough, cough, Trey Lance. That's what you're going to want. Are you going to do a lot of play action? Are you going to do some RPOs? Like, what does it look like? So you can find that in this draft. I feel like all these picks here that, the 49ers could put them somewhere and make it work, especially like I said, these quick guys like Skye Moore, Calvin Austin. But at wide receiver, like, are you looking to find someone that can just replace Debo in some way? Or are you just like, hey, let's get a guy that can thrive in our offense? Debo, it was what it was. This guy doesn't have to run the ball out of the backfield like Treylon Burks would. Still going to be a threat in the offense. That's what you really have to think about. Like, are we trying to replace Debo, or are we just trying to add a weapon to the offense?
Yep. Yes, I agree. I think that's a very important distinction. And let's be honest, there isn't another Debo Samuel out there, so you might as well.
A little bit of Ayuk. I feel like Ayuk has a little Debo in his game. You just
Do you? Oh, that's interesting.
A little bit.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like Ayuk. I think he's going to have a great year this upcoming season with Trey Lance. I mean, that being said, I think even if they lose Debo, Ayuk is ready for a larger role anyway. So
I've been waiting for y'all to use him more. I don't know why. It's just been like, we're going to keep him back a little bit. But then also, like, age is something that, like, wide receiver nerds think about. Like, how old are you? Like, that's one thing that hurts with Debo is, like, there's still so much left in his game. Like, yes. You want to get some of these young guys and come in. Like, you have to think about, like, longevity. Same like with running backs, like wear and tear. Like, how much were they using their offense? How much, treads left on the tires? That's like the main thing for running backs. I'm sure we'll talk about that too. But
yeah, absolutely. Before we move on, man, I saw this crazy stat on Skye Moore. One is that he had a 40% career target share, which is pretty crazy to think. And not just that, he had just a 3.3% drop rate, one of the lowest in the class. So those two stats, like, together, I think just tell you what kind of receiver Skye Moore is. Very reliable for Western Michigan. So I would like him. I mean, Christian Watson, we talked about that. Makes sense. I almost feel like the 49er fans have overhyped him a little bit. So, like, I don't know how excited I would be at this point for him. Of course, you like the idea of him getting to play with Trey Lance again.
Oh, yeah.
And, he had a great career at North Dakota. And, he can contribute in special teams as well, which is always a plus. But let's talk about the scenario in which the 49ers do keep Debo Samuel, because, like I said, that might be the most likely scenario in this case. And so I think it's important to look at some names later in the draft, maybe the early day 3 range. So looking at some of these names here, and all of these wide receivers have visited with the 49ers. So that's why I have them on this list. I think the 49ers do have some interest in these players. I mean, Velus Jones Jr., to me, he strikes me as the most, he also has some Debo traits, and the most exciting out of all of these. I like Danny Gray as well. What can you tell me about some of these names? Who excites you for the 49ers?
So Jones, I like his game a lot. I remember when he played at USC and then he transferred to Tennessee. He's been in college for like 6 years. Like that is the one downfall in Jones. I think he's 25 already, or he's going to be like 25, almost 26 when he's in the league. So, like, that's old, like, for a wide receiver. And I hate to say it, but he's so fast. Like, his speed shows on tape. And like I said, you want to get the ball out of your quarterback's hands fast. A guy like Jones Jr. is an excellent example, like taking screens and just busting them for long plays for Tennessee. Tennessee was fun to watch this year. Like, you watch Hendon Hooker at quarterback and these deep threat guys like Jones Jr. being able to make explosive plays in the SEC. I might be SEC biased, and I 100% am, but I like if a wide receiver can dominate, a lot of SEC defenses the way that he did. Like I said, winning these long vertical routes, which he did against Alabama a couple times in that game, just taking these catches and making something out of it afterwards. Like, he's not just fast, but he's also like silky, how he like can do fakes. He's elusive. Like, he does a lot of things I like, and he's a special teams guy too. So you can use him on special teams. Had a lot of kick returns for USC and Tennessee. Danny Gray, SMU was another exciting offensive to watch. They have some players. There's also a tight end I like for them that I think the 49ers could get. But he had a limited route tree. He doesn't have like the crispest route cuts and breaks and stuff like that, but he makes something after the catch, which I think the 49ers could, once again, use that. Is it the screens, quick intermediate throws? being able to just disguise a couple things to get him open and be able to create something after the catch. Now, Beau Melton is, for me, one of the most underrated guys in this draft. I feel like Beau Melton should be getting a lot more recognition. I know he played at Rutgers. He's in the Big Ten. Rutgers has been bad for such a long time. Like, like no offense, but like they've been just beaten up in the Big Ten. And I heard him talk. I think it was like one of the PFF guys on a podcast, and they were just talking about his game and how he tested well and, you know, just does well in like the drills, the combine, Senior Bowl. He looked phenomenal to me. He was that one guy that was just making deep catches over like everybody, but then also just the way he ran his routes. Like, you can win at the line, but if you're not winning in your stem and your break point and you're not keeping that separation, like there's no getting open. That first few seconds at the line does nothing for me if you're allowing the DB to catch up to you in your stem and your break points where they're just running your routes. But Beau Melton, he keeps separation at all 3 points of his route, and he does it really well. So I think that's someone that excites me probably the most out of all these names as a later round option. Samori, I didn't see too much of him, but Tay Martin, he's another guy that stood out. I think he was at the East-West Shrine Bowl. I watched that and then went back and watched his tapes a little bit. And the same with Jalen Naylor. Poor guy was a team that had Kenneth Walker III running it like 40 times a game and then a limited quarterback play. Then they also had Reed. So they had some other good wide receivers there too. So Jalen Naylor is a guy that you're kind of just banking on the potential. Like, I think there could be more there, and he could be in the 7th round, maybe undrafted, a guy that you bring in to where he could pan out to be something. So to me, it's just how they fall. Like, if Beau Melton's there in like the 3rd or 4th, I think y'all have picked like 134 in the 4th round, something like that. If he's somewhere around that range, absolutely, I'd pull the trigger on Beau Melton. I like his game a lot. I think that's going to be the one guy out of this list that could have a longer career than the other guys.
Okay, and I just wanted to point out, I actually got Samori Torres college wrong on this list.
Nebraska?
He's from Nebraska, yes. So that was
another
a typo.
boring team.
That's a typo. But the reason I wanted to point that out, and it sucks that I didn't, put it here correctly, is I think Adam Peters was at Nebraska's pro day, which I think is notable. I mean, you could say they were looking at Cam Jurgens, but they got to look at Samori as well, and so that's someone I think they can look to target late. So forgive my typo, guys. I think the one thing that I see from just the entire wide receiver class is that it goes very deep. Like all of these guys who are, I would say are pretty good would add something to the 49ers. These are all day 3 guys. I mean, Samori, Tay Martin, and Jalen Naylor are maybe like 7th round guys. I mean, would you say, Josh? I mean, yeah. So
I say especially Tay Martin and Jalen Naylor. They're just 7th round. They could be just, Jags, just another guy, but they have potential. But real quick, I just want to say one other name that I thought about for the 49ers at wide receiver is Wandel Robinson out of Kentucky.
Oh, I've been hearing about him. Yep.
Yeah. I try to go through these wide receivers and be like, where could I see them playing? And he's so raw. He still has so much because he transitioned from running back to wide receiver, but he's so explosive. Just watch the bowl game against, I think it was Purdue with Kentucky. Oh man, that was one of my favorite games to watch bowl game wise because I love Wandel Robinson, but I just want to see how he would look in a Shanahan offense. He's a vertical threat, and Trey Lance has that cannon of an arm that Wandel Robinson would love to have, but then also putting him in the slot, quick passes, putting him in the backfield a little bit. I mean, he's not going to be there a ton, but still, just getting the ball in his hands quick and making big plays. I think Wandel Robinson would be a really good pick too. He's a 3rd round guy, maybe at 93. I think you'll have 105 too. But I don't see him getting past 93, honestly. I think he's a name that needs to be talked about more too. Beau Melton and Wandel Robinson. Keep an eye on those two.
Man, he said not another Jalen
Hurd. That's bad. Jalen Hurd is pretty bad.
Oh man, we'll just forget about that one. But yeah, let's talk about some running backs actually that the 49ers could target. Here, the list of running backs confirmed that the 49ers have met with.
Ones.
Again, you know what? I sense a trend here as well. Aside from James Cook, all these guys are like day 3 guys as well. So they're probably going to target running back late. And again, like you said, these are some good names right here. So what do you think about some of these guys?
Man, I would honestly like any of these guys. And I love Jaylen Warren. He's not like one of my guys. I'm going to go backwards though. Like Jaylen Warren, for me, like he could be a workhorse kind of guy. I love Ty Chandler. I'm one of the biggest Ty Chandler stands out there. Like I love Sam Howell, and I watched so much of his tape, and every time I'm like, man, Ty Chandler, like coming over from Tennessee to North Carolina one season, breaking 1,000 yards, like brand new system, completely new offense. I mean, that's something I talked to Sam Howell about at the Senior Bowl. He was like, man, Ty Chandler coming in, having that experience helped get some of these other, new guys to the offense, like clicking so much more. It made his job a lot easier. But just Ty Chandler, he's always breaking tackles. As soon as he gets to that second level, you see that speed and acceleration just kick in. I think he's great in picking up blocks and blitzes on pass protection. But then also I want to see more of him in the passing game. And of course, I love B-Rob. Like he was the guy that waited his turn in Alabama. Physical guy. He's not going to, run outside and be that speed guy by any means. But he led all FBS running backs in broken tackles. I think he had like 60, something crazy last year. Just a physical north-south guy who, once again, is not afraid to pick up a guy on the edge. If you watch the Cincinnati game in the playoffs, Myjai Sanders, Darian Beavers blitzing us, he did a good job. Like, they were still getting to us because they were bringing the pressure as much as they could. But, yeah, see, thank you. I'm glad. There needs to be more Ty Chandler stands out here. I'm glad I got more support because Ty Chandler's a beast. And, like, I said, I think yesterday, I was like, Washington needs to get Ty Chandler in, like, the 6th or 7th round. I don't care. People are like, oh, you can always get a running back, undrafted free agent, blah, blah. Like, how much does that actually pan out, though? Like, I get it.
Right.
Draft picks are valuable to some people. But if you can get a guy that fits, like, your team, then, like, do it. I think for me, James Cook is the one that would be excellent in the 49ers team. And once again, I would love James Cook. I saw that Michigan game, and I was like, this dude is dirty. Like, running wheel routes on, like, near, like, Daxton Hill and some of these top defensive guys from Michigan, like just running routes like it's a natural thing for him. I was like, yeah, no running back has any business running routes like that. And he's Dalvin's brother. Like, I mean,
right.
like just that gets him some extra points. But and you're in a backfield with like 6 other 5-star running backs, so you don't get many reps like McIntosh and White like that. I mean, Zeus. They had like so many running backs at Georgia. It was just a rotation all the time. But every time James Cook got a handoff or he's going out for some kind of route, he made the most of it and he made big plays. Like I said, that Michigan game stood out to me. Like that bumped him a couple spots up my board, just being able to run routes like that and catch deep balls. It's crazy.
What I like about James Cook, and just like honestly any running back who can give you that versatility to be able to catch passes out of the backfield. What I like about that is that instead of trying to make a wide receiver play like a running back, why not drop the running back who you can play as a wide receiver every once in a while? So exactly, the reverse Debo, because you know what's going to happen in a few years. You could draft a wide receiver who's just like Debo and use him the exact same way, and when his contract is up, he might have the same concerns as Debo has right now. I mean,
guess who's getting paid nothing? The running back. Not Debo.
Exactly. So it's not a bad idea, and I feel like James Cook, he would be terrific for that. I mean, he averaged 6.6 yards per carry, and then 24 receptions, 221 yards, career stats. And that's impressive, like you said, considering he was part of a heavy rotation, I'd say. I would like him a lot.
Yeah. I mean, Georgia, like, they have guys behind them that are even better. They were just waiting for, like, James Cook to leave. Like, hey, y'all hurry up and get out of here, because we've got, like I said, like McIntosh, a couple, like, 5-star guys that are just, like, biting at the chomps to play. I mean, they're playing, like, 3-4 running backs a game. Like, I don't know. But he doesn't have that, like, crazy top-end speed that, you want in, like, some of these running backs. But just the versatility speaks for itself. Like you said, being able for the defense has to account for him going out for a pass like that. Like, it just puts more stress on the defense, which the more you can do that, the more weapons you can give Trey Lance or Jimmy G, then the better. So We're not. I won't mention that
Jimmy
name
G.
anymore on this episode, but like I'll just say Trey Lance because that's.
I was trying to go a whole day without like hearing his name. Thank you, Josh, for mentioning him, reminding me he's still on the roster.
I've been keeping up with the drawing Jimmy G every day till he's traded thing. I love it.
Those are great.
Gold.
Yeah, those are really great. One quick question though on Ty Chandler. He's 24 years old, is he not?
That's all right. Yeah.
All right, because I thought that was interesting. You're like, for the wide receiver, you're like, he's almost 25, and then okay, so for Ty Chandler, you can.
Is he 20? Is he that old? I mean, look, I don't have everyone's birthday written down, but like regardless, like I remember him being at Tennessee, and he was like, all right, I'm sick of this offense, and of course they get exciting as soon as he leaves. But like just having one season at UNC like that was an impressive one season with my guy Sam Howell, who I'm like, that's like my biggest draft crush, by the way. But Ty Chandler is up there in draft crushes for me. So I love Ty. Would not mind getting him. But that's the thing, like he's on a rookie deal. As soon as his rookie deal's up, like, oh well, he's gone. Like, no offense, Ty, but as soon as it comes up, like just get another running back.
That's how it is for all running backs. That's my philosophy. All right. Do you have any other like sleeper running backs that you're like
Rashad
not necessarily
White
just for the 49ers, but just like in general?
Yeah, no, I came away from the Senior Bowl saying like, good gosh, there's some good running backs. Like Tyler Batty running routes was another dude who ran some like crazy routes, but Rashad White was the guy I came away just blown away. Yeah, I think him with y'all once again. He can line up in the slot even. There's just so many things he can do. As soon as he gets free, like it's over. And that's one thing I noticed. Like there's a couple times like watching practice, there's like a little hole and like, all right, he might get some out of this. And then 5 seconds later, he's in the end zone. You're like, how did he just like get from there to there in like 3 seconds? Like he has phenomenal speed, but he can find that open hole and make the most of it. But his being able to catch passes, like once again, if you can pick up blitzes and you can catch passes as a running back, your value is so much more, your value goes up. And he did everything that they asked him to. And I know even like a lot of the Draft Network guys, like Rashad White might have been the best running back at the Senior Bowl this year.
Whew. Yeah, I like him a lot. I'm actually glad that you mentioned him because I like him for the 49ers. The one thing that kind of sucks is that I feel like his draft stock has risen quite a bit. And so I don't know if, the 49ers would be willing to go for him that early. But then again, I feel like at some points after the first couple rounds, it could probably go best player available. No problem.
It's okay. You just got to stir up some random untrue rumors and just hope they get out. Bleed into the draft community. Like he didn't open a door for this older lady. I don't know if y'all saw it. But
I'm surprised. I haven't heard some like crazy story this year about like any prospect.
Yeah, there's no Tunsil news yet. Yeah, I mean, that is crazy. There's no like crazy personalities in this draft. Like everyone's just like, yeah, I can't wait to get to the league. Like that's it. Like you're not gonna be like flat. Like I guess Kayvon Thibodeau and like wanting to work for Nike and like his weird offseason stuff has been like the highlight so far. Like saying Oregon was better than Alabama. Like that's it so far. Like Kayvon's the only weird one so far.
I guess no drama is a good thing when it comes to the draft.
I don't know, it adds a little juice to it, but
all right, we got a question here for you. If the 49ers draft James Cook, should they still draft Ty Chandler?
No, you can't do the Trey Sermon thing again. No, I mean, especially with James Cook. And I like JaMychal Hasty. I don't mind Jeff Wilson. Like, I feel like y'all have depth. You just need more like of an impact guy. And I think that's what James Cook really comes in. Once again, being able to be like, all right, he's in the backfield. We don't know if he's picking up blitzes, if he's running, or if he's, got this wheel route behind us and you don't see it coming. I think Ty Chandler, if he goes undrafted, would be someone maybe they could sign. Cause I mean, y'all could always cut somebody, but for me, if you get James Cook, like that's it. You can't draft 2 running backs again. But the Trey Sermon thing was a head scratcher for me. I was like, why did they get Trey Sermon? Like, I don't know.
We're still wondering.
Yeah. That story's still being written.
Yeah. We'll see what happens in his second year. But all right, those are some good running backs. I'm sure they'll list. Yeah, I'm sure they'll draft one late and we'll be pretty excited about who they get. Now moving on to some tight ends. So the 49ers have only met with one tight end, at least confirmed visits. I'm sure there may be some we don't know about, but the only name that I know of is tight end Rodney Williams out of Tennessee Martin. Small school, very small school,
Very small, yeah.
but Ronnie Williams has made some noise. I mean, you can see from his pro day results, some of his results, the way he tested, ranked first among tight ends at the combine had he been there. So he's very athletic and he's making some noise. Converted wide receiver, 6'4", 235 pounds. He had 70 receptions, 800 yards, and 4 touchdowns in his career. So pretty good. And the notable thing is he met with the 49ers tight end coach, Brian Fleury. So, well, whether that's notable or not, you guys decide. But yeah, that could be a name to look out for. Maybe 7th round, maybe undrafted. But what are some other names in regards to tight end that you like for the 49ers?
Well, first off, those are crazy numbers. I have no idea who this guy is. The only reason I don't like him is because his school reminds me of Auburn. But outside, like, his numbers are crazy. Like 40.5 vertical jump. Like, good gosh. Those are some crazy numbers. And I mean, and that's the thing. Like, I feel like, once again, the 49ers and Shanahan, they love finding a guy that can, have that raw ability. Like, what can we mold this guy into? And I think someone like that, people said like Thaddeus Moss was another one of those guys that we got. He was undrafted, turned out to be nothing. But like, what does that potential look like? What could you make him into? So he could absolutely be some interest there. For tight end, one guy that really interests me a lot for y'all is because y'all need some depth. Whether it's Jalen Weidemeyer, who has fallen big time. I mean, he's been the biggest guy that's like fallen out of top 3 tight end talk to now he's like 6th round kind of guy. But he has, because he tested like terribly. It was like a 1 on the RAS, which is not good. Or like some of them had like a 0.8, which is not good. But the way that his game translates from Texas A&M going into the pros, like a vertical threat, he can run routes. And the thing is, you have Kittle, and he's had a couple injuries, like nothing too major, right?
Yeah, no.
A couple, yeah. But like outside of that, what do you have? Charlie Warner, I kind of liked him a little bit. Like, I feel like there could be something there, but you need more of a threat in the receiving game that can help you. I think Jalen Weidemeyer would be a guy, once again, can run routes, can do stuff after the catch. Saw him especially against Alabama. And it could be a guy that he falls just because of how he tested. And you're like, yo, we get this guy in the 6th round and he could be a tight end too for us. Like that, that's really hard to pass up on. But I like this list. I've heard of Derek Deese, and of course he said Chigo just because I live in Virginia. So like I'm plugged in with like Maryland, of course being Washington, we draft. If you're in the DMV, like DC, Maryland, Virginia, like we're pretty much guaranteed to draft you. So Chigo is a guy that's been on our boards as well. Just another receiving threat at tight end. I haven't seen a lot of Josh, but he's got to be good if he's a Josh, and he played at North Dakota State. And then of course Rodney Williams, like you said, just an athletic freak. But it's a blessing to have a guy like Kittle and like the tight end. Was it tight end academy? What do they call it?
Yeah. Or is it tight end university?
Tight end university. Yeah.
Whatever it is.
Like it is a blessing to have a guy like that can really mold any of these young tight ends to, sharpen the game, to be like, hey, this is what today's NFL looks like. We need you to be more like an Isaiah Likely. Like, we need you to be able to run these routes and be a vertical threat. And that's what I like about maybe like a Charlie Kolar, who has great hands, like phenomenal hands, great blocker. Yeah, but he doesn't run the best routes. But could Kittle help out his game and turn him into more of a route runner? Because Iowa State, they really didn't have much interest in like working on his routes. They had a lot of talent on that offense. Of course, they got Breece Hall. They're like, yo, just be open and catch these passes for us. And he did. Like, he was a good red zone threat.
That's the thing with him, is like, he doesn't even need to be a great route runner to create separation because he's so big.
Yeah.
And he knows how to use his body, to get high up to the catch point. So that was his strength. But I totally, see what you're saying. That could definitely be something that he could work on. I think it's interesting. You said the 49ers they could look at, like a receiving tight end, another receiving tight end. And I actually think the opposite. I'm like, they need someone who can block, because they need someone who can get George Kittle from blocking. It's like George Kittle is too good at blocking
Get him
to
out
a
the line.
fault that like they can't even afford to get him off of blocking. And
That's a tough thing, is you don't want some guy to come in and they're like, all right, it's a guaranteed run because this guy can't catch.
yeah.
And they're like, so now it's more 70-30 chance that they're going to run the ball. Like if you can get a guy who's, balanced, like I feel like Logan Thomas for us is a great blocker.
He's great.
But he can also, he's a great receiving threat. So you got to find a guy who can really balance it out. I think Derek Deese would be one of those guys that's, balanced in everything. Sure. Even Daniel Bellinger out of South Dakota State, not South Dakota State, San Diego State is another one of those guys. Just he tested really well. He's one of the best testing tight ends in the draft. But great receiving threat, but he's not afraid of chipping a guy on the edge, which I love seeing, like a tight end knowing was. Thank you. I appreciate it. Like I said, glad you were a Ty Chandler fan. You're already one of my favorites. I'll shoot you a follow on Twitter. You're on my good side.
Yeah, I mean, I like Chigo because he can do both as well. Like he's very balanced. He's a great blocker, and I feel like they didn't use him as much as a receiver as they probably could have, but it's there. Like that talent is there as well. So, and that's kind of what inspired this list that I put up, is that, these are guys who can block as well as receive. And he mentioned Derek Deese. His dad actually was a former guard for the 49ers. I don't know if you knew that, but
so he's already got it in.
Keep him local.
It's funny, with Chigo, Draft Network listed him as a physically impressive specimen. So
wow.
That's as high as a praise as it gets. It says he will move the needle for NFL teams looking to add strong receiving ability in the middle of the field. But he's also a great blocker, like you said. So that's high praise from the Draft Network. So that I'm sold. If you're a specimen of any kind.
And the reason that I like Babbage is the fact that, because all the 49er fans are hyping up Watson, and okay, like I said, I get it.
Of course.
But Babbage played with Trey Lance too, and they had great chemistry. Like when I watched Trey Lance, I kept noticing Babbage because they had a lot of chemistry, and he was a big weapon in the red zone. So I kind of like him, and I feel like there's not a lot of buzz surrounding him, so you could probably get him late. So I wouldn't mind if he joined Trey Lance on the 49ers.
Yeah, Grant Calcutta is another guy that I liked out of SMU.
Yeah.
They're a pass heavy offense with SMU, but he showed great toughness and blocking, but then also made some good catches. So there's definitely depth at the tight end. But I really feel like the 49ers need that second guy. You just can't lean on Kittle. Like you said, once again, get him. He's too good to be blocking.
Yeah.
Get him in the open field and give him some help, because, like I said, Charlie Warner, like, he's nice, but like, that's not. You can't go into the season like, hey, we got this. He's tight end room's on lock.
He's not like an impact player, and so that's what worries me about the fact that they haven't really looked into any tight ends, at least that we know of. Like I said, only one, Rodney Williams, who could very well, be a beast at the next level, but it doesn't look like they've really done as much homework on some of these other tight ends. Who knows? Maybe they look at some remaining free agents after the draft. I mean, I don't know. There's not a lot of names that, stand out to me there, but who knows? Maybe they like someone.
But they have plenty of late picks. I mean, 3 and 6. Yeah. You've got to think one of those probably. That's what I'm saying. If Jalen Wademeyer falls to 187, that's tough to pass up, just because he was talked about as a number 2, number 3 tight end just a couple, like right before the combine, and then he tested terribly. And they're like, yeah, we don't want this guy. So, I mean, yeah, that would be a great value.
Yeah, I think it was like very exaggerated, the reaction of like, oh, he's going to go undrafted now.
Like, why?
Right. It's like,
what happened?
People say over and over, trust the tape. And,
yeah,
so it's the same thing. And I'm not too worried about it. I'm sure it was a head scratcher for sure, but
Yeah,
I agree
I was
with
like,
you
what
if
the
he's
heck are
there.
those numbers?
Yeah, if he's there in the 6th, though, I mean, you got to consider it. But yeah, aside from that, do you have any tight end sleepers?
No, that was it. I'm gonna circle back on Rodney Williams now because those numbers are outrageous. I mean, that reminds me of like Jelani Woods numbers, for UVA. Just a freak athlete that you think you can do a lot with. So I'm a fan, besides the colors.
For sure. I got to do some more homework on him as well. But Josh, thank you so much for coming on today. This was great. I think we got a good lay of the land of what we could expect for draft day. And hopefully the 49ers come away with 1 or 2 or more of these guys.
Oh, yeah.
And thank you so much once again.
Yep. Let's pay Terry McLaurin so we don't have a Debo situation. Appreciate it.
All right, man. Thanks you guys for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe this video. Oh, and Josh, make sure plug your socials for us real quick.
Yeah, so on Twitter, at Josh Taylor FB, as in like football. But like you said, I do the draft show on Takeover Sports Network called The Draft Takeover. And then I'm back to making Washington content. I doubt y'all will check that out because, I mean, we're just so much fun to watch, especially like off the field stuff. But Taking Command with Josh Taylor. So subscribe. I would appreciate it on YouTube. Doing some mock drafts for us as well. I'll be at the draft party on Thursday. Check it out. I'm sure y'all have a ton of fun stuff going on the West Coast. The East Coast is pretty boring. I've never been to California, but I'll definitely circle it on my list. But definitely appreciate you having me on.
All right. Have a good night, everyone. Peace.